Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green and you're tuning into AMTV, Alternative Media Television. So what is Ebola really about? I'm absolutely convinced after watching the president speak today, on the White House lawn with the helicopter behind him. He, usually gives speeches on how he's bombing Syria, Iraq, and now Ebola. All of it is a humanitarian effort by the president, by the way. I mean, he's the guy that was going to withdraw troops. He's the leftist liberal scumbag. He's a Nobel Peace Prize winner. So when he goes to war, when he attacks independent sovereign nations, a continuation and an expansion of the George W. Bush era wars, he's different. He's a guy that pundits and comedians like Bill Maher can support, that buy into the liberal bullshit agenda that makes up the President of the United States today. But back to the question, the pervasive question, what is Ebola really about? I'm absolutely convinced that Ebola is about power and control. And more importantly, it's about quarantine. The same thing that happened during World War II, FDR quarantining innocent Japanese Americans and sending them to internment camps, concentration camps, simply because they were Japanese at the time, gave the president, through executive action, executive order, total power and control. And it's exactly what Ebola does for the president of the United States. It gives him power and control to quarantine. And it's a reason why. It's the fundamental reason why, in my opinion, the president hasn't shut down incoming flights from Ebola-stricken countries. The Ebola hot zone, it's why he's allowing the infection to take root here in the United States of America, is why he's allowing doctors like Craig Spencer to come back from Liberia wearing full protective gear and then going bowling, going to the park, using Uber, a taxi service, exposing himself to hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people through the New York City subway system. Because again, it grants the liberal leftist bullshit, warmongering commander and thief, President Barack Obama, total power and total control through quarantine. It makes it more difficult to travel internationally. But more importantly, it creates the police state militarization environment that Obama loves so much. We saw this post during the Boston bombings, where the two alleged suspects, just two of them, were on the run, brought an entire American city to a standstill. You had cops and special elite forces in the streets gunning down just two dudes. Two dudes that supposedly, allegedly used pressure cookers to bomb the Boston Marathon. Again, all it was about power, control, the militarization of these new barbarians that call themselves police officers, that use vehicles like MRAPs, the same vehicles that they use in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. The places that Obama has continued the wars and is currently bombing today. So this, folks, is about quarantine. This is about power. See, you can shut down an entire American city, Dallas, for example. You can shut down an entire movement, let's just say the Tea Party, for example, or a person. All you have to do as the President of the United States is scream Ebola. And under the guise of his executive action and the threat of disease, again, it's about fear, folks. He mentioned multiple times during his speech today on the lawn, where he declares wars currently in Iraq and Syria, and now talks about Ebola. This is all about the power of quarantine. It gives the president total and absolute control over the American population. And so the president needs total power. He needs total control. He needs the threat of a disease. Fear. Again, he mentioned multiple times that Americans aren't fearful people. We shouldn't fear this. The CDC said the same thing, they actually said we should fear it. But anytime they mention fear, or repeat something, or the president says that, we're not fearful as Americans, that means he wants you to be fearful. And as long as Americans are fearful, they have no problem with quarantine. They have no problem with shutting down, declaring martial law of an American city, whether or not it was the recent example of Boston, around the Boston bombings, or it's potentially Dallas. Just happens to be in a liberty state like the great state of Texas that grossly opposes the administration. So this to me is what Ebola is really about, folks. It's about spreading fear, it's about power, it's about control, and it's about the ability of the president to quarantine anybody, anyone, any city, any town, in any part of the country. It's the same reason he's sending troops over to Liberia, setting up AFRICOM, these command posts now. I mean, it doesn't make logical sense. It's not like our troops can shoot at the virus. Why would he be sending members of our military to fire at Ebola? There's a reason why he's sending and militarizing this part of the world. And he's doing the same thing in the United States of America. For those of you that think this is conspiracy theory, all you have to do is look to history. Whether or not it is the rounding up of innocent Japanese Americans into internment camps against their will, or it's the McCarthy era. Remember, you're a communist. You might not be a communist, but if they want you to be a communist, you'll certainly be one. And they'll pretty much character assassinate you and execute you publicly in any way they choose. All of this about power and control, the ability of the president to quarantine the American people, and this is what Ebola is really about. Again, I believe Ebola to be a very serious threat, a very real disease that is likely airborne today, that has been engineered and is being used as biological warfare by the United States federal government, or potentially maybe even a rogue nation state or a terrorist organization. But either way, it's going to be politicized and used to gear up the American people to spread more fear and to control the masses and to push anyone, maybe you, into quarantine for that matter, if the president deems so fit. I'm Christopher Green. Get this video out everywhere, make it viral, hard-hitting it in your face, and click the link below to support our sponsor.
So the point is that this disease can be contained, it will be defeated, progress is possible, but we're going to have to stay vigilant, and we've got to make sure that we're working together. We have to keep leading the global response. America cannot look like it is shying away because other people are watching what we do. And if we don't have a robust international response in West Africa, then we are actually endangering ourselves here back home. In order to do that, we've got to make sure that those workers who are willing and able and dedicated to go over there in a really tough job, that they're applauded, thanked, and supported. That should be our priority. And we can make sure that when they come back, they are being monitored in a prudent fashion. But we want to make sure that we understand that they are doing God's work over there. And they're doing that to keep us safe. And I want to make sure that every policy we put in place is supportive of their efforts. Because if they are successful, then we're not going to have to worry about Ebola here at home. America, in the end, is not defined by fear. That's not who we are. America is defined by possibility, and when we see a problem and we see a challenge, then we fix it. We don't just react based on our fears. Thank you.
Concerned, sir, that there might be some confusion between the quarantine rules used by the military and used by healthcare workers and by some states?
Well, the military is in a different situation, obviously, because they are, first of all, not treating patients. Second of all, they are not there voluntarily. It's part of their mission that's been assigned to them by their commanders and ultimately by me, the commander-in-chief. So we don't expect to have similar rules for our military as we do for civilians. They are already, by definition, if they're in the military, under more circumscribed conditions.